On this episode of Xylem's In the Field with Gould's Water Technology podcast series, Terry Morse joins us from the National Groundwater Association to share resources they're making available to groundwater professionals during these unprecedented times. As one of the most critical organizations to the residential water industry, NGWA has taken a welcome lead in providing insights, programming, and materials that are helping water professionals be proactive and prepared. Here's the discussion. I'm your host, Amanda Holloway, here with Susan O'Grady, and we're really excited to welcome Terry Morse from the National Groundwater Association to today's episode of In the Field with Gould's Water Technology, part of Xylem's Solving Water podcast. We're especially happy to have him here to talk through some of the different resources, programming, materials, the different things that the NGWA is doing to support the industry in light of COVID-19. Terry, thanks so much for giving us some of your time today. Before we get into how this virus is affecting the groundwater industry, we want to ask some general questions about NGWA and how things are going for you, and also how your role may have changed recently. Good.
So a little bit of background on NGWA. I'm the Chief Executive Officer, and NGWA is National Groundwater Association. We consist of about 10,000 members across the country, water well drillers, which we consider contractors, the scientists and engineer world, along with the manufacturers and suppliers. Our role basically is to try to help our members in the industry become better professionals is what they do, whether help them become better business owner operators or advance their professional careers. We try to be the central hub from an education and knowledge transfer. And then also to make sure that what we're doing in this industry, that we get that information out to the public, to the legislators, to the public policy individuals. I feel like what this industry does is vital to everybody's livelihood as a necessity of life. But we're a hidden jewel in the industry. I think that the general public doesn't understand what this industry does, and it's our job as the association to shout from the highest rooftops to let everybody know what this industry does to support their daily lives.
How about your role specifically and what you're seeing as a result of COVID-19? How is that affecting what you do on a day-to-day basis and what NGWA offers?
It's a great question. It almost changes hourly. At least if a couple of weeks ago when this first hit, it seemed like every day a new story would come out that would change what we're doing. But it's leveled off a little bit. So what we're focused on now is making sure that our members and individuals within the industry are getting the accurate information, because there's a lot of sources, a lot of information coming out like a shotgun, and some of it's just opinions. And this has happened not just because of COVID-19, but there's a lot of, misinformation that may be out there, thoughts and opinions. So what we've tried to do specifically with COVID-19 is gather the information, package it down to what's relevant to our industry, and then get that out to everybody to let them know this is how it affects either you or your clients and homeowners.
So what are a few resources or programs that you've created to help groundwater professionals in this time of need?
Wow. We've done quite a few things. The first, I would say, if you go to our website at ngwa.org, there's a specific resource page, COVID-19 resource page. In there, it lists, there's probably about 15, 20 different things. But that was one of the first things we did. Additionally, it's been really helpful. We set up a dedicated Facebook page for COVID-19 where our members can go on. It's basically a discussion and chat. We started that with really 150 members, and in the past 2 weeks, it's grown to over 8,000. And that's been a great direct source for our business owners, operators to get on there and ask specific questions and share information. But on the website, on our resource page, we've done things from the standpoint of creating a checklist for when the contractor goes out and makes a service call. Here's the do's and don'ts in order to protect yourself and your staff, to when the announcement was made what was considered essential workers. We drafted up a letter that our business owners can use to download to carry that letter in their vehicle, so that if they're pulled over by an official asking why they're out performing work, they can show that they're considered an essential worker. We've done information out on the business loans to the health employee checklist. There's even a part on the page that breaks down, even though the federal government issued their guidelines of essential workers, each individual state has interpreted that themselves. So on our website, you can go there and click your specific state and see how they've interpreted that essential work policy.
Okay. Oh, great. Do you maybe have a sample of what a post would be on the Facebook site that might be useful to somebody in the industry?
Oh, I think the first question that came out is how are you as a contractor managing your staff, making calls to homes? What are some ideas that if you're not allowed to drill, construct a new well, how are you reorganizing your work crews? Are there 3-person crews, 2-person crews? So they're sharing ideas of how they're realigning their resources to meet whatever state regulations they have and or to keep their employees safe when they're out on the job site.
You just mentioned that there's about essential workers, and we had recently on the show Xylem's VP of Product Regulatory and Government Affairs, and he was sharing some insights for small business owners regarding the CARES Act. And so what are a couple specific takeaways from the CARES Act that you might be able to share for the well drilling industry?
What I would like for our industry to know is, first of all, educate yourself, because there's 2 parts to it. There's the SBA loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. And I think as an owner-operator, you need to understand how those numbers, how those programs specifically relate to your situation, because knowing how they work and plugging that into your business operation is going to be essential to your business survival and maximizing the benefits. So, for example, in the Paycheck Protection Program, understand how that affects your expenses over the time period from the 8 weeks that loan is given out. Whereas the small business loan it's a 10-year loan that maybe you can manage those expenses over a longer period of time. So one's shorter, one's longer, and maybe you need to just look at one or both. So just understand the numbers of that, because that's key to making through these challenging times.
Yeah, that's great. I think, we've had a lot of customers ask about educational materials for their kids. I mean, I'm sure you might experience this yourself. Homeschooling, has added some stress to parents' lives.
Yes.
I know it has mine. Can you tell us maybe what NGWA has offered to help with these requests?
Yeah, so our foundation, the Groundwater Foundation, and you can find us at groundwater.org. But we have a K through 12 program, education program, and there's 2 components to it. One's there's what we call there's an awesome aquifer kit. It's more of a hands-on tool, and before this whole COVID-19 crisis hit, it was more of an in-classroom hands-on demonstration that taught our youth the cycle of water and how it interacts with the ground, and it was a great visual. So we used to supply school teachers with this, but parents could still go online, and if they want a hands-on educational kit, they could purchase one, but specifically for online, we have, I think, 15 different online lesson plans. There's also an app they can download, but go to groundwater.org. You'll see a link there for students, and then our entire online education program that parents can access. And then even for little ones, we have little coloring sheets that actually help them educate them on groundwater at the same time that they're having fun coloring. So it's all there. We promoted it, but for parents who are looking for something, I think it's a great site.
That's awesome. And I think I read somewhere that you guys are updating content almost weekly, adding some new stuff to the site as well. Yeah,
it's weekly, daily. I think the latest thing we put on there were the coloring sheets for the younger kids. But yes, that site's it's actually been there for a number of years, but we've gone through because of the situation that's at hand. We updated quite a bit of the information, and it's there right now for anybody to access and use.
On our show, In the Field with Gould's Water Technology, the latest series covers tips and trainings for small business owners. Listen to all 5 episodes of the Small Business Toolbox series wherever you get your podcasts.
And so just kind of shifting gears a little bit from the education components, how do you think that the COVID-19 situation is going to change the industry in the future, like for the long haul? And what are some things that the NGWA is doing in preparation for these changes?
Yeah, so it's, there's a lot of thoughts and opinions on how this is going to shape things. I can tell you what we're doing right now currently and where we think things are going to go. What I'm seeing right now is everybody's pulling together stronger. Our members are communicating. We as an association are developing stronger connections with the state associations. The information we're putting out, the states are asking if they can share it. I actually have other associations contacting us, asking us if they can use the information we have on our resource page to help their members out. So I think there's going to be this tighter connection. This industry is great in that we're already a tight group, and what I'm proud of is that the companies and members in this industry have pulled together even stronger. Like I mentioned earlier, the Facebook page, we went from 150 to 8,000. So I think there's going to be this trend towards people sharing ideas, how to learn to adapt, how to become better business owners, operators. I think it's going to force everybody to understand short-term and long-term effects on their business. How can they operate more efficiently? I see things, I think, really across the board from a virtual standpoint. Some of our members in the past in this industry prefer hands-on experience training, which I think will still be, but maybe in the future there'll be more of a hybrid where I think there'll be a greater acceptance of virtual education. Some states right now don't allow virtual education from a CEU standpoint, but I can see where that trend and that push is going to allow state associations or even us at the national level to put on virtual CE classes. So I think that's kind of what we're going to see from a wave in the future. And I think there'll be a lot more focus on the PPE equipment, on proper use, disinfection. So I think it's going to make us smarter, more efficient, and utilize a little bit more technology.
Yeah, and I mean, this Facebook group is really interesting. I'm actually part of that group. And I love to interact on there or read what people are saying, but what are some of the key challenges or questions that you feel like you're getting at this time from that resource, but just in general?
Well, some of the challenging ones are probably a little bit more state specific.
Okay.
Like going back to where, the federal government put out their policies, what qualified as an essential worker or industry. Some of the individual states have kind of honed down a little bit tighter. So more of those, I guess, grassroots questions have been more challenging because it's hard to interpret. We can help point them in the right direction, but at times it's really more at the state level where those decisions, they need to get those answers, because if we give them a general answer, it may not pertain to the way their states. We had a question come in from Pennsylvania. It was about construction. They were told they're not allowed to do construction. And then, so my response to them was that, look, we're not a construction SIC code, but the word construction can be used in you're constructing a new well. So you need to go back to your state and see how they interpret that, even though you're saying that you're constructing a well. But, again, it goes back to water being essential, and different states have interpreted it differently. I think those are the most challenging.
Yeah, I would guess that's a pretty tough call to make. But hopefully, like you said, building the community on the Facebook group and just in general is really helping people collaborate and solve some of this stuff.
Yeah, and you're getting real-time answers from the individuals who are out in the field working on it quite a bit. We've had a few of the members share how they've realign their work crews and what they're doing when they're making house calls, what they're doing on the front end, the back end. And I think at a time like this, people get bogged down, or they may get focused on a very microscopic issue, and they don't have time to pull back and look at the bigger picture. So that Facebook page helps them throw out a question that maybe they just haven't had time to think about, but somebody else has, and helps them get across that a lot quicker versus taking time to think through it themselves.
Which is really helpful.
So I know we covered this a little bit, and I know you've mentioned that it's different per state, but just as an essential industry, what are the top 3 things a groundwater professional can do to protect themselves and their customers at this time?
Yeah, I think at this time, I think it comes back to safety. Because if they don't have a workforce, they're not going to be able to, get the jobs done, and it's going to be affected not only for the homeowner that they're trying to go help, but then also for themselves as an individual and a company. So really, I think in those 3 areas, I think they need to look at their employees on a daily basis. If they're coming into work, make sure that they're healthy and they don't have a fever. If they're going to go out and make a house call, maybe on the front end, check the status of the homeowner they're going to. Is there anybody sick in that house? And make sure that can they do this service without making any contact with the family at all? They're outside, the family's inside. I think the third thing they can do then is follow up maybe 2 weeks later with that homeowner. If they did a job, is anybody in that home sick, 14 days later? Because if so, and if their employee had contact, then that should send a signal that maybe they should quarantine their employees. So I think checking that health safety on the front end while they're on the call, and then on the back end, that keeps everybody kind of in that contact list of who's healthy, who's not, and what actions need to be taken from that standpoint.
Yeah, it's a great recommendation. Just in your opinion, how can manufacturers like Xylem help the NGWA during this time?
Well, I think like what we're doing right now, this podcast is helpful. It's helpful to get information out. Where I see the contract, where the manufacturers can help the association and the industry, is stay in touch with us, NGWA. If you've seen a trend, seen anything there that would help us communicate that information to the contractor. For instance, if a manufacturer has a supply chain that's being disrupted, and this is going to affect the fulfillment of products or supplies, communicate that to us so that the drillers, we can get it out to the contractors, let them know if there's operations overseas that are being shut down because of quarantine issues. The biggest question I get from our contractors is that they typically, if an event happens, they feel the effects maybe 2 months down the road. It's kind of like that slow process that ends up affecting them. But if they can hear any information on the front lines, which I feel like the manufacturers and suppliers are more on the front lines of seeing what's happening in their world, communicate that to us so we can share that information so that the contractors can plan and prep accordingly. So sharing of information, trends.
And I think, that I know on Xylem.com we have an area specific to COVID-19 response efforts, whether that's a letter from our CEO or a video from our CEO. We've got some actions that we're taking. I mean, over communication is pretty critical at this time, regardless of what part of the industry you're in. So what you're saying makes total sense.
Yeah, good. And at all times, if there's information that you have that you want to share, on our website or in information pieces that we put out, all that's helpful because it not only goes out from us, but also goes to the state associations. So to understand give you a bigger picture of the communication from the association world, we have a pretty large database of the contractors and individuals in this industry, but it's not inclusive. There are some outreach by the states. The states can get it a little bit further than we can. So we send stuff out. Each individual state association then has their own database of contacts to send out. Okay. So it's a chain reaction. There's a lot of individuals who get information from us and the same information from the state, but there's that extra extension. So we're also the first step of communication to the states so that the states can then get it out.
It's good to know.
Great. And I know that we've shared on our social media channels some of your posts as well, just continuing to spread the message of good resources that we can share with people that follow us on social media as well.
Well, thanks. And if you go to our, the COVID-19 resource section on our website, a lot of information there. And I will tell you that, yes, we've come up with some of it internally, but a good amount of it comes from other resources. We see something like, for instance, the letter the employee letter that is recommended for people to carry in their cars to present to a law enforcement agent if they're pulled over. That came to me from my local township police chief, who said, "Hey, here's what we're recommending you carry in your vehicles." I saw that. I thought, you know what? Everybody needs to know this information. So it's just this collective ideas coming in. We're working on something that should come out here in the next couple of days, kind of an overall PPE proper use for the contractors or anybody, scientists, engineers who are in the field. And it really came from an idea. I had a past board member contact me this morning saying, "Hey, we need to educate contractors on how to properly put on, take off, and disinfect their PPE." Well, we go back in our database and we've got that information from various articles we run. June is Safety Awareness a month.
Okay.
So when we look back through our database, we have a lot of this information pieced over the years, but now we're going to package it together and get it out now, not wait till June because the hot issues now, but we're going to kind of put together a collective, here's how you properly wear it, dispose of it, disinfect it. And so just those ideas coming in from across the board help us come up with, to fine tune it and maybe branch off to another idea as well.
You know, we've covered so much already in this conversation. So I don't know if it's just, you know, making sure to visit your website and really take a look at those COVID-19 resources that you have there. But what's the most important thing you want the groundwater community to take away from this conversation today?
I want everybody to know that we're here to help, and that collectively we're stronger together, from every individual that's a business company that's in this industry to the associations that's sharing this information. We're happy and want to be the central hub to share all this information. But I really think just the nature of this industry, we're here, everybody understands the vital importance of the service that we provide to communities and individuals, in that, you know, we're going to make it through it. There's some challenging times right now, but we have some tough individuals, tough companies, smart individuals. Collectively, we're going to work this out, and we're going to be stronger coming out of it. And go to our resource page, because every day we're putting stuff in there. Now, we do send it out through email blasts and all of our social media. But if you miss one of those notifications, the central hub is that resource page. So go there and explore all the different links and educate yourself how it specifically relates to this industry.
That's great information. You've really given us a wealth of information today, which is really appreciated. But any personal experiences that you've had during this process, or like words of encouragement, anything like that, that's really helped you and navigate this situation that you think that might be beneficial for our listeners to hear?
Well, for me personally, so, you know, earlier you asked about, you know, education, children at home. I have 5 at home. Range from a junior in high school to a preschooler. And so things are stressful. You know, I make it into the office every day still. I'm fortunate that my office is 5 miles from my house. But then trying to balance this, going home, trying to balance the personal life, the stress. But what I've tried to tell my staff, my kids, my family is that in adversity, when one door closes, there's always an opportunity for another opportunity opens. And you'd ask how this industry is going to look possibly post COVID-19. And I would challenge everybody to look at, we may have to change the way we're doing it, but usually when you're stopped one way, there's another opportunity that opens up. So keep your eyes and ears open and think about those opportunities that come out of this. It's stressful, but just know that it is going to pass. Try not to act on the moment, but think, you know, 2, 3 weeks down, maybe a month down the road, and just keep that glimmer of hope.
Yeah, I think that's something we all need right now. I have a preschooler as well, and just one, not 5 kids. And I'm having my own set of struggles. Maybe has there been any sort of interesting, you mentioned like opportunities that have arisen, and I do think that that's a great thing that's come out of this situation, is this sort of silver lining component. But has there been any sort of clever or interesting things that you've learned, whether it's family, friends, or your colleagues here, to kind of help get through with kids at home and managing work and all that good stuff?
Wow, that's a great question. I think the first probably just goes back to just basic appreciation and value the time that you are at home. I thought about this yesterday, that if for some reason, let's say this were to end abruptly in a week, I would look back and say, wow, did I waste that time not doing things with my kids at home that I could have done while we were locked in? So not knowing when that end is, try to take advantage of that stuff now, sitting around talking to them, doing different things from a social media standpoint. What really intrigued me was my middle son, virtually having a virtual play date, had his friends like on, I think, Instagram or Snapchat talking to them while they're playing video games. But I think some of those things, it's learning and understanding different ways to communicate, but reconnect, I think have been the things that have come out of this. And I think it's going to force some people who've had reluctance to technology to understand how now technology can be their friend in this world and move forward. So that's what I learned from it.
It's really heartening to see there's so much interaction on that Facebook group. I mean, especially just coming from the marketing side of things, it's just really interesting to see that level of engagement really ramp up, and people are starting to embrace it even more. So yeah, it's great to see that on there. Anything else you want to add, Terry, before we kind of wrap it up here?
No, I appreciate your time. I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to connect and get some information out. And I know I've said it before, but just, stay in touch with us, visit our resource page, because there's 2 or 3 things we're working on. There's going to be a press release going out today and some new information going out this week. And that's the best way to stay in touch and be updated.
Well, thank you for all your time this morning, and stay safe out there.
Great. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
The Solving Water podcast is produced and distributed by Xylem, a global water technology company of more than 16,000 employees committed to solving critical water and infrastructure challenges worldwide. Stream, download, and subscribe